The first time my brother brought his girlfriend home, I saw a line of floating comments slide across the air. Finally, the Reborn FL is meeting the ML's family again. This time she has to destroy that spoiled little sister. I was sitting on the living room rug, pretending to be sweet while scrolling through my phone. I looked up slowly. Interesting. My brother, Ethan, had always spoiled me. Our mom used to joke that he was not just my brother, he was my unpaid lawyer, chef, driver, and emergency contact. If I wanted fries at midnight, he complained for 5 minutes, then showed up with fries. If I cried over a broken toy when I was 7, he fixed it with tape and acted like he had performed surgery. So when he walked in with a beautiful girl in a cream sweater, soft curls, and a careful smile, I already knew the story she wanted everyone to believe. Her name was Serena. She held a bakery box in both hands and spoke like every word had been polished before she came in. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, it's so nice to meet you. And Lily, Ethan talks about you all the time. I made these myself. I hope you like them. The comments exploded. Here it comes. Last life, the sister threw the pastries on the floor and made everyone think Serena was bullied. This time our Reborn FL is ready. Let the spoiled 2FL expose herself. I paused with the box in my hands. So last time I threw it. Then this time, I would not. I opened the box, picked up a little lemon tart, and took a bite. It was actually good. This is amazing, I said, smiling until my eyes curved. Serena, you are seriously talented. For half a second, her perfect smile froze. Then she recovered. I'm so glad you like it. Ethan looked relieved. Mom and Dad exchanged the kind of look parents share when they think their adult son has finally made a sensible choice. The floating comments panicked. Wait. Why is she being nice? The script changed. Serena changed tactics fast. She noticed the limited edition collectible set on the coffee table and said gently, Ethan, is this the set you mentioned? I found one through a seller in Japan. I wanted to give it to you for your birthday. Ethan blinked. You bought it. It took some effort. Serena lowered her lashes. But you said you liked it. I knew that set. Ethan had sent me the link a month earlier because the figure stand matched the shelf I wanted. I had joked, buy me the shelf, big brother. He had replied, fine. I'll get you the figures too. Now Serena had brought the same set as a girlfriend gift. The comments cheered. Perfect trap. Last life the sister snatched it and Serena cried. Now everyone will see how greedy Lily is. I did not snatch it. I leaned against the sofa and said, Ethan, Serena went through all that trouble for you. Keep it. Don't make her gift weird. Serena's eyes flickered. Ethan stared at me like I had suddenly started speaking another language. But you wanted the stand, he said. I can buy a stand. I smiled at Serena. Besides, your girlfriend is thoughtful. Appreciate her. The comments went silent, then frantic. Is the spoiled sister reborn too? No. The novel never said that. She's supposed to be the toxic sister. No, I was not reborn. I could just see the spoilers. Dinner gave Serena another chance. She sat beside Ethan, served him food, laughed softly at Mom's questions, and presented herself as the perfect future daughter-in-law. Then, while reaching for soup, her wrist tilted. The warm broth spilled across my sleeve. Lily. Ethan shot up. Are you burned? No. It's warm, not hot. I held up my arm. Serena's eyes reddened instantly. I'm so sorry. I'm so clumsy. You have every right to be upset. Classic. Last life, I must have snapped. Everyone would have pitied her and judged me. This life, I held her hand and said sincerely, don't blame yourself. Accidents happen. Her expression almost cracked. After dinner, Ethan knocked on my bedroom door. He handed me a bag. Inside were the collectible figures and the stand. Serena gave them to you, I said. She gave them to me, he replied. And what's mine is yours. The comments wailed. He still spoils his sister. Serena lost 90% of his estate to her in the last life. That's why she came back. I set the gift on my desk. Not because Serena gave it to me. Because Ethan did. Over the next 2 months, Serena tried a softer war. She brought me iced coffee, bought me scarves, asked me to movies, and added me on social media. I let her. She bought me a scarf. I wore it to brunch and told every auntie at the table, Serena gave me this. Isn't she sweet? She invited me to a movie. I bought popcorn, linked arms with her, and called her my favorite almost sister. She sent coffee. I posted it with a caption, Best future sister-in-law energy. The comments suffered. Stop building her approval rating. The toxic sister has no shame. Serena keeps giving her stairs to walk down and she keeps building a house on them. Eventually Serena stopped. She had wanted me to reveal my true colors, but there were no colors to reveal. I was only difficult with my brother. With her, I could be harmless. The shift happened one Saturday. I dropped by Ethan's apartment without warning to pick up a hard drive. Serena opened the door in lounge clothes, her hair damp like she had just showered. For one instant, panic flashed in her eyes. Then she smiled. Lily, Ethan went downstairs for coffee. Come in. On the coffee table lay a worn notebook. Serena followed my gaze, snapped it shut, and slid it into a drawer. Too late. The cover said Rebirth Notes. The comments screamed that I had seen Serena's diary. They were right. Serena poured me water and asked, Have you read anything interesting lately? Actually, yes, I said. A romance where the husband adores his wife. Though I never understand why some heroines are so obsessed with fighting the husband's sister. Her fingers tightened around the glass. Maybe, she said quietly, because the wife feels like she never comes first. First in what? In his heart. Serena looked down. She was his wife. She stayed with him for 20 years, cared for his parents, built a life beside him. Then he died and left 90% of everything to his sister. The room went very still. So that was the wound. When Ethan came back, I asked him later in the elevator, Do you really love Serena? He did not answer right away. She treats me well, he said. That wasn't my question. The elevator doors opened. He patted my shoulder and told me not to overthink. But I knew something then. He did not know the answer either. Weeks passed. Serena grew quieter, but not calmer. Ethan started searching things like how to balance partner and family, and what if my girlfriend resents my sister. He was not cold to her. He was simply tired. One night he sat on the edge of his bed and asked me, Do you remember when I shaved my head because you said it would look cool? I laughed. You were 10. Mom almost fainted. I didn't want to do it, he said. Kids made fun of me for months. But you looked so excited. I thought, fine, I'll survive. He looked at his phone, where Serena's messages waited. Someone told me that kind of love is unhealthy. That once I have my own family, I should put my wife first and pull away from you. Is she right? I did not rush to defend myself. Ethan, I said, if you love Serena because she makes you happy, then you should care about what hurts her. But if you only stay because she treats you well and you feel guilty, you need to ask yourself whether you are happy. The comments went quiet. No one in Serena's rebirth story had asked the male lead that. A week later, Serena came to our house and talked about engagement. Ethan became more silent with every sentence. He did not reject her cruelly, but he did not agree either. After she left, he stood on the balcony and said, If I can't give her what she wants, am I selfish for keeping her? Engagement doesn't fix fear, I said. Don't promise something just to calm someone down. That night Serena looked at me with hatred clear enough to cut glass. 2 weeks later, Ethan ended it. At 3:17 a.m., he texted me. I told her the truth. I stared at the message and knew it was not over. Serena disappeared for half a month. Then one rainy evening, after work, I found her waiting outside my office building. She wore a pale dress and a perfect smile, The same soft image she had carried into our home the first day. Only her eyes had changed. "Can we talk?" she asked. The comments shouted for me to run. I went anyway, but I chose a crowded coffee shop with cameras and too many witnesses. Serena ordered 2 black coffees and pushed one toward me. "Ethan told you we broke up," she said. "Yes. He said he wasn't happy. He said he felt like he was acting as the kind of boyfriend he was supposed to be." Her laugh was thin. "He wasn't like that last life." The comments vanished into silence. I took a sip of coffee. "So you know I know. Are you reborn too?" "No. I just see things." I set down the cup. "I saw that you came back. I saw that you hated me. I saw all the little traps." Her face turned pale. "But none of that matters as much as this. Ethan does not love you now." She flinched. "He loved me before," she whispered. "He did. Before was before. I did everything right this time." Her voice cracked. "I was kind to him. I was kind to your parents. I even tried to be kind to you. Was it so wrong to want him to choose me?" For the first time, she sounded less like a villain and more like a woman who had spent 2 lives begging for proof. "When the will was read," she said, 90% went to you. I spent 20 years beside him and realized I had only rented space in his life." I understood then. She had never really been fighting for money. She had been fighting to be chosen without hesitation. "Ethan never knew you remembered another life," I said. "To him, you were just a girlfriend who kept testing him, cornering him, and asking him to rank the people he loved. He didn't know why. He only knew he was exhausted." Serena cried silently. Then she asked, "Do you feel guilty?" "No," I said. "The estate was his choice. I didn't steal it. You can hate me, but that was never my crime." Her lips trembled. "This life," I continued. "You spilled soup on me, tried to embarrass me with gifts, tried to make me look cruel. You failed, but failure doesn't mean innocence." She lowered her head. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I will not let you hurt me because you are hurting." Serena opened her purse. The comments went wild. But she only took out a red wedding invitation. "I'm getting married," she said. "My parents introduced him. He's kind. Steady. He likes me." I looked at the invitation. "Congratulations." At the door, she turned back. "Lily Parker. I hated you for 2 lifetimes, and you still don't know what you did wrong." Then she left. For a while, I thought that was the ending. It was not. 3 months later, after Sunday dinner at my parents' house, Ethan drove me back to my apartment and said, "I'm quitting my finance job." "To do what?" "Open an art studio. Teach kids to draw." I smiled. "You always wanted that." "Yeah," he said. "I did." He looked lighter than I had seen him in years. That night, after he left, a text from an unknown number lit up my phone. "Guess where I am?" Then an address on the edge of the city. Then another message. "Come, and I'll tell you what you did wrong last life." The comments begged me not to go. I changed into sneakers, grabbed my keys, and drove toward the address. For 3 miles, I followed the dark road, my hand steady on the wheel. Then I turned around. Not because I was afraid. Because I was done. I pulled over beneath a streetlight and typed, "I'm not coming. Whatever happened last life, I don't remember it and I don't want to know. This life, I didn't throw your pastries, steal your gift, or insult you in front of my parents. You spilled soup on me and I handed you napkins. You bought me things and I praised you. You hated me for 2 lives. Aren't you tired?" 3 minutes later, she replied. "Tired." I looked at that word for a long time. Then I wrote, "Then stop hating me." She never answered. I blocked the number and drove home. The next weekend, Ethan took me to buy roasted chestnuts from a little shop with foggy windows. It was raining. He made me wait in the car while he stood in line with an umbrella, tall and patient in a grey coat. My phone buzzed with a bank alert. Ethan had transferred money. Note: first profit from the art studio. Your share. I texted him, "I don't need your money." He replied from the line, "I know. I just wanted to give it to you." The comments returned softly. He would still leave her 90%, wouldn't he? Some things have nothing to do with rebirth. That's who he is. No one stole it. When he came back with the hot paper bag, I peeled a chestnut and held it to his mouth. "Sweet?" I asked. "Sweet." On the ride home, I said, "Keep your future money for yourself." He glanced at me. "Future things can wait." "I'm serious." "So am I." His voice was calm. "What's mine is yours." The sun broke through the clouds, turning the overpass gold. Maybe Serena would never understand that kind of love. Maybe I would never understand what she had lost. But this life, she married someone who liked her. Ethan opened the studio he had buried for years. And I finally stopped playing the villain in someone else's grief. That night, Mom called to ask if we were coming for dinner on Sunday. Ethan said yes. I said yes too. At dinner, he put the last chicken wing in my bowl. "Eat more. I'm full." "You only had 6. Wings are not counted by pieces." "Then how are they counted?" I choked on my soup. He lowered his head to hide a smile. The comments floated by one last time. So who makes him happy, and who makes him perform? Obvious. I pretended not to see. Some answers do not need to be asked. Some love does not need to be fought for. It was already there. Chapter 1. Before Serena ever walked through our front door, my family had a rhythm that outsiders usually misunderstood. Ethan and I were not dramatic about it. We did not make speeches about family loyalty or put matching quotes on social media. He simply showed up. If my car made a strange sound, he was the first person under the hood with a flashlight. If I forgot to eat during finals, he texted 3 times and then sent delivery to my dorm. If I said I wanted to learn how to bake cinnamon rolls at 2 in the morning, he said I was ridiculous, then sent me a recipe and asked for pictures. People called it spoiling. I called it being loved by someone who had known me before I learned how to defend myself. That kind of love is not glamorous. It is not the love people write vows about. It is the quiet kind that remembers what you hate on your sandwich and which parking garage makes you nervous at night. So when Serena arrived with her soft smile and practiced manners, I could feel the room trying to make space for a romance. Mom straightened the throw pillows twice. Dad used his polite voice. Ethan kept glancing at me, silently asking me to behave. I was prepared to be charming, if only because I liked seeing him hopeful. Then the floating comments appeared, bright and smug, slicing across the air like subtitles only I could read. They called Serena the reborn female lead and me the toxic little sister. They said she had suffered in another life because Ethan left almost everything to me. They said she came back to win. I almost laughed. Not because her pain was funny. It was not. Anyone who carried a memory heavy enough to bend a second life deserved at least a little pity. I almost laughed because the comments were so certain I was a villain. They had already named me, judged me, and assigned me an ending before I had even opened the pastry box. That was the first lesson Serena taught me without meaning to. A story becomes dangerous when the person telling it needs you to be a monster. Chapter 2. The pastry trap was small, but small traps are often the most revealing. A person who truly wants peace does not bring a homemade gift and wait for someone to ruin it. Serena's eyes were on my fingers as I lifted the first tart. She did not watch my face. She watched the box, the carpet, the space between my hand and the floor. She was waiting for the old Lily, the one she remembered, to appear on command. I wondered what that old Lily had been like. Spoiled. Probably. Sharp-tongued. Definitely. I could imagine myself younger, easier to provoke, less interested in dignity than victory. If someone had entered my home and tried to compete with me for Ethan's attention, maybe I had snapped. Maybe I had thrown things. Maybe I had said cruel words and then forgotten them by morning while Serena carried them for decades. The problem was that I did not remember. And because I did not remember, I could not live my present life as repayment for a version of me I had never met. So I ate the tart slowly. I praised the crust. I asked what kind of lemon she used. Mom relaxed. Dad smiled. Ethan's shoulders dropped. Serena smiled too, but the corners of her mouth looked strained, as if kindness from me was a language she had studied but never expected to hear spoken fluently. The collectible trap came right after. That one was cleverer because it used Ethan's habit of giving me things before I asked properly. Serena had found an object connected to me and presented it as proof of her devotion to him. If I reached for it, I would look greedy. If Ethan gave it to me, he would look unable to prioritize his girlfriend. If Serena offered it to me, she would look generous. Every path led to her looking wounded. So I stepped off the path. I told Ethan to keep it. I told Serena she was thoughtful. I watched the comments stutter and flicker above the coffee table. For the first time, I understood that the floating comments were not truth itself. They were a crowd. Crowds love certainty more than accuracy. Serena had come prepared to fight a girl who attacked. She had not prepared for a girl who smiled and refused to move. Chapter 3. After that first dinner, I started studying Serena the way she studied me. She was beautiful in a way that looked effortless until you noticed the tiny corrections. Hair curled away from the face, sweater soft but not childish, makeup natural enough to make adults trust her, earrings simple enough to seem tasteful instead of expensive. Her voice was never too loud. Her laughter never lasted too long. She had built herself into the kind of woman parents approved of and men felt lucky to have. But her eyes gave her away whenever Ethan looked at me. It did not have to be a big gesture. If he reminded me to take my allergy medicine, Serena's eyes cooled. If he pushed the last dinner roll toward my plate without thinking, her fingers tightened. If Mom mentioned some childhood story where Ethan had protected me, Serena smiled, but the smile never reached the muscles around her eyes. At first I thought she hated me because of the inheritance. Later, I realized money was only the shape her pain had taken. Money was measurable. 90% looked clean on paper. It gave her a number to point at, a number that could stand in for 20 years of feeling second. That made her more human and more dangerous. When she spilled soup on my sleeve, I did not move away because the comments had already told me it was warm. Still, I watched Ethan's reaction carefully. He stood before the bowl stopped rocking. He asked if I was burned before asking how Serena dropped it. That tiny order mattered. Serena saw it too. Her eyes filled with tears, and for 1 second I almost admired her. She could call tears faster than most people could call an elevator. I held her hand and forgave her in front of everyone. It was not pure kindness. I will not pretend I was a saint. Forgiveness, given publicly and calmly, can be sharper than anger. Anger would have confirmed her story. Forgiveness forced her to stand there as the only person in the room who knew she had aimed the bowl. That night Ethan gave me the collectible set anyway. He said what was his was mine. I believed him, and that was the cruelty Serena could not survive. I did not need to fight for what she had spent a life begging to receive. Chapter 4. Serena's second strategy was affection. If hostility could not expose me, sweetness might trap me. She texted me cafe recommendations. She sent me a scarf when the weather turned cold. She asked if I wanted to join her for movies Ethan hated. She behaved like a woman determined to become my friend, and the comments praised her for being brilliant. They did not understand that I was better at being loved than she was at pretending. When she bought me coffee, I posted it. When she brought me a scarf, I wore it. When she sat beside me at the theater, I linked my arm through hers and whispered jokes until she had to laugh in public. Every gift she used as bait became evidence of her generosity. Every attempt to get close enough to shove me turned into another reason my parents liked her. By the end of the second month, Mom had started saying, "Serena is so patient with Lily." Dad said Ethan was lucky. Ethan said Serena treated me better than she treated him. Serena's smile became a thin sheet of ice. I knew people might hear this and think I was manipulative. Maybe I was. But I was not the one who turned family dinner into a courtroom. Serena had brought a case against me from another life, and I was simply refusing to provide the evidence. At night, when I was alone, I sometimes wondered about that other version of myself. Had she really been cruel? Had she mocked Serena, stolen gifts, demanded Ethan's time, enjoyed watching his wife feel small? Or had Serena, trapped in her own loneliness, turned ordinary sibling closeness into theft because theft was easier to hate than absence? The comments insisted I had been vicious. But the comments also insisted I would throw pastries. They were wrong about that. So I stopped trusting their certainty. I used their warnings, yes. I listened when they told me Serena had a plan. But I did not let them tell me who I was. That became my private rule. Spoilers can tell you what someone expects. They cannot tell you what you must become. Chapter 5. The day I found the Rebirth notebook, Ethan's apartment smelled like coffee grounds and Serena's shampoo. It was strangely intimate, the kind of smell that announces someone has crossed from girlfriend to almost family. Her cardigan hung over the back of a chair. 2 mugs sat in the sink. A pair of her shoes waited beside Ethan's old sneakers. For a second, I wondered whether I should leave. Not because I felt guilty, but because I suddenly saw what Serena wanted. Not just Ethan's attention, but proof that she belonged in spaces before I did. Then I saw the notebook. Rebirth Notes. The title was almost too direct. If I had not already seen floating comments, I would have thought it was a writing project or a therapy journal. Serena moved fast, but fear makes people loud. The way she hid it told me the notebook mattered more than anything in the room. Our conversation afterward was quiet and vicious under the surface. I asked why heroines in romance stories hated sisters. She answered like someone pressing a bruise. Because the wife knows she can never be first. The sentence stayed with me. Not because I agreed, but because I could hear the years inside it. 20 years of being the wife. 20 years of believing marriage should mean victory. 20 years of discovering that a ring does not erase someone's first language of love. When Ethan returned with coffee, he looked normal. That almost made it worse. He did not know he was standing between 2 women who remembered different versions of his life. He did not know one of us had come armed with grief from a future he had not lived. In the elevator, I asked whether he loved her. He said she treated him well. It was the answer of a good man trying to be fair, not the answer of a man in love. I watched his reflection in the elevator doors. Ethan was kind, sometimes to the point of stupidity. He would carry guilt like groceries, quietly, without asking if any of it belonged to him. That was when I stopped thinking of Serena as only my problem. She was becoming his cage too. Chapter 6. Ethan changed slowly, the way weather changes before a storm. At first he only paused before answering Serena's calls. Then he stopped posting pictures. Then he started asking questions that sounded casual until I noticed he had asked them 3 times in different forms. Do you think couples need boundaries with family? Do I come home too often? If I get married, should things be different? I never answered too quickly. That was important. If I defended myself, I would become exactly what Serena said I was, the sister who could not let go. So I asked him what he wanted. He always looked startled, as if wanting had not been part of the assignment. Ethan had spent most of his life being useful. Useful sons choose stable majors. Useful brothers fix things. Useful boyfriends remember anniversaries, answer texts, and apologize when they do not understand what they did wrong. Everyone praised him for being dependable, but nobody asked whether dependability had become a room with no door. Serena wanted the version of him she had married before, the devoted husband from a finished story. But this Ethan was not finished. He was still becoming, and her fear left no room for that. The night he talked about shaving his head, I saw the old wound beneath his easy smile. I had remembered that story as proof of how much he loved me. He remembered the same story as love mixed with embarrassment, sacrifice, and a little boy deciding his sister's joy mattered more than his own pride. Both memories were true. That is the problem with love. The person receiving it may remember warmth while the person giving it remembers weight. When he asked if Serena was right, I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him he owed me nothing but should still choose me. I wanted to protect my place. Instead, I told him to ask whether he was happy. The comments fell silent because that question did not belong to the original genre. In Serena's rebirth story, Ethan was a prize. In mine, he was a person. People are allowed to be tired of roles, even beautiful roles written for them by someone else's pain. Chapter 7. The breakup did not happen in one dramatic scene. There was no screaming on the lawn, no ring thrown into a fountain, no public confession. It happened in the slow failure of Serena's certainty. She pushed for engagement because she believed a formal promise would quiet the past. Ethan hesitated because some honest part of him understood that fear grows teeth after marriage. It does not magically become trust. When Serena came to our house that week, she looked thinner. Mom noticed and fussed. Dad offered coffee. Ethan stood too still. I watched them from the kitchen doorway and thought about how sad it was, really, for two people to sit on the same couch while living in different timelines. Serena was talking to the man who had disappointed her after 20 years. Ethan was talking to a girlfriend he had dated for less than one. No wonder they could not understand each other. After she left, he stood on the balcony with an unlit cigarette between his fingers. He did not smoke it. He just held it like a prop for someone who did not know what to do with his hands. She says setting a date will help her feel secure, he said. Will it? He looked down at the parking lot. For a while, maybe. And after that? He did not answer. I wanted to hate Serena cleanly. It would have made everything easier. But by then I had seen too much. She was not a cartoon villain. She was a woman who had mistaken possession for safety because safety had never stayed when she needed it. Still, understanding someone does not mean surrendering to them. The next morning Ethan drove to meet her. He came back pale, polite, and exhausted. At 3:17 a.m., he texted me that he had told her the truth. He did not say what truth. He did not need to. Some endings are just one person admitting they cannot keep acting in a play that hurts everyone on stage. Chapter 8. When Serena appeared outside my office building, I was not surprised. I had been expecting something. Maybe a confrontation. Maybe tears. Maybe one final trap sharpened by humiliation. She stood beneath the glass awning in a pale dress that belonged to spring even though the night was cold. Rain dotted her hair. Her face looked calm in the way people look calm when they have rehearsed pain until it becomes posture. The comments begged me to run. I chose the coffee shop because it was crowded and bright enough. That was not bravery. That was common sense. A strong female lead does not walk into darkness just to prove she is not afraid. Serena noticed my choice and smiled faintly. Still careful, she said. Still alive, I replied. For the first 10 minutes, we talked like strangers. Coffee, weather, Ethan, the breakup. Then she said the words last life, and everything between us changed shape. I watched her while she spoke. She did not describe the inheritance like a greedy woman counting dollars. She described it like a widow realizing, at the very end, that the home she had decorated was never fully hers. 90% to me. 10% to her. The numbers had become a verdict. She had carried them into death and back. If she had only told Ethan that truth, maybe things would have gone differently. But how could she? I remember our marriage from another timeline, and your future will breaks me is not a sentence that makes anyone sound stable. So she hid it. She smiled. She tested. She demanded reassurance without explaining the wound. Ethan failed tests he did not know he was taking. And I became the easiest target because I was visible. When she asked if I felt guilty, I considered lying. An apology might have soothed her. It might have ended the conversation softly. But apologies given for peace become debts later. I could be sorry she hurt. I could not confess to stealing what Ethan had chosen to give. No, I said. Her face collapsed and hardened at the same time. That was when I knew we were both telling the truth, and neither truth could save the other. Chapter 9. The wedding invitation shocked me more than a knife would have. Not because marriage meant Serena had healed, but because it meant she was tired enough to choose an ordinary door out. The invitation was red, heavy, formal, with gold letters and a date only 6 weeks away. She said the man was steady. He liked her. She sounded almost embarrassed by how small that sounded compared with destiny. But sometimes being liked is larger than being destined. I congratulated her because there was nothing else to say. She stood, smoothed her dress, And for one moment I saw the woman she might have been without the rebirth, without the comments, without the invisible courtroom where I had been sentenced before arriving. Then she called me by my full name. "I hated you for 2 lifetimes," she said, "and you still don't know what you did wrong." That sentence stayed with me longer than I wanted. It followed me home. It sat beside me while I washed my face. It waited in the mirror when I brushed my teeth. What had I done wrong? The easy answer was nothing. Ethan's love was Ethan's choice. His estate was Ethan's choice. My existence was not a crime. But easy answers rarely haunt people. The harder answer was that perhaps in another life, I had enjoyed being chosen too much. Perhaps I had accepted every gift without seeing what it cost the person watching. Perhaps I had been careless with a privilege I did not have to earn. Carelessness can wound even when it is not cruelty. I still could not apologize for a life I did not remember. But I could admit, privately, that being loved does not make a person innocent in every room. That realization did not make me run after Serena. It only made me quieter. Chapter 10. After Serena's wedding, the comments faded. At first I missed them. Their noise had been annoying, but it had also been useful. They warned me when a trap was forming. They told me Serena's emotional weather before she entered the room. Without them, life became ordinary again, which meant uncertain. Ordinary uncertainty is harder than dramatic prophecy. There are no spoilers for whether your brother will be okay after a breakup. No floating text tells you whether your mother misses the girl she thought might become family. No comments explain whether the woman who hated you is learning to be happy with someone else or lying awake beside a kind husband, still counting ghosts. Ethan started drawing again before he announced he would quit. I found sketches in the margins of grocery lists, on receipts, on the back of envelopes. Children's faces, chairs, streetlights, the curve of Mom's hands around a mug. His lines were rusty, then less rusty. One afternoon he drew me sitting at the kitchen island eating cereal straight from the box. He captioned it, "Adult woman, questionable survival instincts." I stole the sketch and put it on my fridge. When he told me about the art studio, I did not cheer loudly. Loud joy can scare fragile decisions. I only asked about rent, students, insurance, supplies. Practical questions made it real. He answered every one, and the more he talked, the younger he looked. That was how I knew Serena had been right about one thing. Ethan had spent years not choosing himself. She had wanted him to choose her instead of me. But maybe the real choice had never been between us. Maybe he needed to choose the version of himself that existed before everyone praised him for being dependable. The first time his studio opened, he sent me a picture of 6 tiny paint-smudged hands holding up terrible watercolor suns. I cried for no reason, then blamed allergies. He texted, "Don't be dramatic." I replied, "Too late. I was born." Chapter 11. The unknown number arrived on a quiet night, which made it worse. Drama should announce itself with thunder, but real danger often enters through a tiny screen while you are standing in socks by your front door. Guess where I am? I knew it was Serena before the second message came. The tone had that old sharpness, the one she used when she wanted me curious enough to step closer. The address was on the edge of the city. Warehouses, storage lots, roads with poor lighting. The comments exploded back into existence with all the panic of old friends who had never learned emotional moderation. Do not go. It's a trap. She wants to tell you what you did wrong because she wants you alone. I changed clothes anyway. I put on sneakers, tied my hair back, checked my phone battery, and took my keys. Part of me wanted the answer. I hated that part. Curiosity can wear the mask of courage, but sometimes it is only vanity. I wanted to know what another version of me had done because I wanted to decide whether Serena's hatred was fair. 3 miles into the drive, under a row of tired streetlights, the truth landed simply. It did not matter. If I had been cruel last life, knowing would not let me repair it. If I had been innocent, knowing would not give Serena back 20 years. Either way, I would be handing my present life to a past that did not belong to me. So I pulled over. "I'm not coming," I typed. The next messages came slowly, and I wrote mine even slower. I told her this life was clean enough. Not perfect. Not saintly. But clean enough that I would not be dragged into a second trial for a first life I could not remember. You hated me for 2 lives. Aren't you tired? When she answered, tired, I stared until the word blurred. Then stop hating me. It was not forgiveness. It was not victory. It was the first boundary I had ever set with a ghost. Chapter 12. The chestnut shop was ordinary, which is why I remember it best. Foggy windows. A paper sign taped crookedly near the register. Rain gathering in the curb. People waiting under umbrellas with that patient winter misery Americans pretend not to have. Ethan told me to stay in the car because I had forgotten gloves, then stood in line like a man whose greatest ambition was to bring his sister hot food before it cooled. The bank alert came while he was still outside. First profit from the art studio. Your share. I laughed before I cried. It was not even that much money. That made it worse. He had earned the first proof that his new life might work, and his first instinct was to divide it with me. That was the thing Serena had never understood. Ethan's giving was not a pie chart. It was not romance losing points to family. It was his language. He gave because joy expanded when he shared it. Asking him to stop giving would not make his love purer. It would only make him quieter. When he got back in the car, rain clung to his coat. He handed me the chestnuts with unnecessary seriousness, like he was delivering medicine. Eat them hot. You first. You first. We argued for 10 seconds, then I peeled one and held it to his mouth. He looked embarrassed but ate it. The comments whispered that he would still leave me 90%. Maybe he would. Maybe he would not. I hoped he spent most of it on paint, rent, travel, and a woman who made him laugh without asking him to prove laughter was loyal. On the way home, sunlight broke through the rain. The road turned gold. Ethan drove with one hand on the wheel and the other tapping along to a song from high school. For once, he did not look like a male lead. He looked like my brother. That was better. Chapter 13. The final message from the comments came during dinner, over cola chicken wings and mom's soup. Ethan had put the last wing in my bowl. I told him I was full. He said I had only eaten 6. I said wings were not counted by pieces. He asked how they were counted, and I had no answer, which made him smile into his rice like a child hiding candy. So who makes him happy, and who makes him perform? Obvious. I pretended not to see it. The comments had spent months calling me the toxic sister. They had rooted for Serena, cursed me, pitted her, doubted me, then slowly changed their minds. In the end, even they wanted a neat conclusion. They wanted to know who was right. They wanted the villain label peeled off one woman and stuck onto another. But life did not feel that clean anymore. Serena had hurt me, yes. She had set traps, lied with tears, and tried to make me pay for a grief I did not create. She had also been a woman who loved a man through one lifetime and discovered his deepest loyalty lived somewhere she could never move into. Her hatred was wrong, but it was not random. I had protected myself, yes. I had refused to perform evil for her comfort. I had also been born into a love so effortless that I could spend years not noticing how blinding it looked from outside. Ethan was not a prize. Serena was not only a villain. I was not only innocent. Maybe growing up means losing the pleasure of simple labels. That night I dreamed of the old apartment, the ugly coffee table, the pencil scratches, and Ethan's shaved head shining in afternoon light. In the dream, I drew him badly and he kept the picture anyway. When I woke, breakfast waited on the table with a note. Chestnuts are still yours. The screen of my phone was black. No comments. No spoilers. No reborn heroine. No estate. Just morning. Just breakfast. Just the quiet, stubborn fact that some love does not need to be won because it was never a competition. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, He stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close. Still, I learned something from the girl who hated me. Being loved is not the same as being right. Being hurt is not the same as being owed the world. Between those two truths, there is a narrow road, and I am still learning to walk it without turning every shadow into an enemy. When Ethan's studio became busier, he stopped sending me every small profit and started sending pictures instead. Paint on the floor. Children laughing. A crooked sign by the door. I liked those better than money. Money proved he remembered me. The pictures proved he was finally remembering himself. Sometimes I wondered whether Serena was happy. I hoped she was. Not because I had become noble, but because a happy Serena would stop looking backward for someone to punish. A happy Serena would let the dead timeline stay dead. That would be mercy for both of us. As for the old accusation, I kept it in a quiet drawer of my mind. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe I had been cruel. Maybe I had simply existed in a place she wanted. I could not fix a life I did not remember. I could only refuse to damage the one in front of me. If this were a cleaner story, I would say everyone received exactly what they deserved. Serena would find peace, Ethan would find love, and I would find a perfect sentence that made the past harmless. Real life is less obedient. Peace arrives in pieces. Love grows crooked. Some questions remain unanswered because answering them would only reopen a door everyone is trying to close.